My family is trying to force me to kick my roommate out to take in my half-sister, who was born through an affair, and house her during her schooling years, even though I have made it clear that I do not like her. Posted by you/patient_win_8831. This is going to need some context, but feel free to skip to the bottom for a TLDR. I was debating whether or not to post this, but seeing as nobody from my inner circle can be neutral on the topic, I'll look for advice on the internet. When I, now 29F, was 14, it came out that my dad had been living a whole other life behind his wife's, and my mom's, back, one where he had a 1-year-old daughter, now 16F, with his employee. Back then, it was a huge deal. My brother, now 31M, refused to speak to our dad for a whole year, and I haven't been able to look him in the eye ever since. Now, I don't know if our mom knew or if she just didn't care, but I remember her being very desperate to keep her husband. Perhaps it was because he was the breadwinner and made quite a lot, who knows, but eventually, after many therapy sessions and counseling, they stayed together. That didn't mean his other family was brickwalled as you'd think would be appropriate. In fact, my dad stopped going out with the other women, but they remained friends, and my mom and she had some sort of sister-wives vibes going on. It was just weird. On every holiday, there'd be this woman who knowingly and willingly almost destroyed another family. Yes, she was aware our dad was married, and didn't care, and this baby who me and my brother, were meant to treat like a sibling. We haven't felt like a family since. My brother refused to participate in holidays like Christmas or Easter for a few years, then came around when Ally, I'll call my stepsister this for clarity's sake, was 4 years old, and decided he'd be a brother to her. It was a very sudden switch, though he still doesn't speak to our father or Ally's mom. Maybe I'm jaded, but I never saw Ally's mom as anything but a homewrecker and a terrible person, and Ally is a result of that. I know my dad is to blame as well, but back then, it was easier to be angry at them than at my dad. I never saw Ally as a sister and made it clear. That resulted in some familial tension that continues to this day. It would be really hard to list everything that happened here, so I won't, and I'll get to the main issue at hand. So, Ally recently decided to change schools because of some issues I'm not interested in. For clarification, by country's eye schools can have specific specializations, like art, confectionery, hairdressing, and so on. These are just the first ones I could think of, but I'm not sure how common it is. Ally used to study in grammar school, a high school that has no specific field, but is usually a stepping stone between high school and college, but it was apparently too demanding, and she decided to drop out and pursue an art school. She's not an extraordinary artist for her age, but good enough to get accepted into a pretty good art school that happens to be near me. Ally and her mom live close to my parents, and my parents live a solid 3 hours away from me, so getting to and from school would be difficult for her, but not impossible. 2 days ago, we had a family dinner. Yes, Ally and her mom were invited, much to my dismay, where the issue was brought up. They talked around the topic, maybe expecting me to pipe up and open my doors for her, but I didn't, so they eventually asked flat out if I could let Ally live with me for the school year. She'd be there from Monday to Friday, and be at home for any holidays and such. I also work in art and am an illustrator, so they think it would be beneficial for Ally to spend time around real artists, which is hilarious because they called my profession useless. Here are my reasons for declining. There is an option of dorms just outside of campus. The living conditions are good, not a 5-star hotel, but good nonetheless. I don't like Ally and have made that clear. We have absolutely no relationship. Aside from her being blood-related, there's nothing about her that would convince me to take her in. My brother lives closer to the art school, like an hour away. It's not right around the corner, but doable, plus he actually likes Ally. When I needed help and came to Ally's mom as a Hail Mary, she laughed me out the door and said that we're not family, so for her to insist we are, in fact, a family now is both irritating and funny. I have a pretty modest apartment. Yes, I have 2 rooms, but I'm renting out the other to my best friend. They didn't ask me nicely, they demanded. And when I showed hesitation, they immediately descended upon me like a pack of vultures. Apparently, Ally doesn't want to live with a stranger in a dorm, something about anxiety, which, while I can sympathize, I also lived in dorms with 2 strangers who didn't even like me. She's my sister despite it all and God wanted us to be a family. I'm atheist. My brother's girlfriend is currently pregnant with a baby due soon, and he doesn't want to bring Ally into all of that, plus his girlfriend is nervous around strangers, which is the last thing she needs. I should kick out my roommate in favor of family, and it should be a no-brainer to let my sister live with me. Again, she's not my sister. I don't know her, and I never put in the effort to get to know her, nor do I want to. I don't want to know if I'm the jerk for that. I guess I am, because it's not her fault she came into the world like this. Anyway, I wanted to think about it for a bit and then turn them down to at least pretend to seriously consider it, but with how the evening devolved from calm and peaceful to yelling and demanding in a matter of seconds, I said no immediately and remained firm on my stance. Everything calmed down when Ally ran out of the house, back to her house, I assume. Then, I was asked to leave, which I was already doing, and was told we'll discuss the matter when I'm ready to act like an adult, in which case I better sign up for kindergarten before they're all full. I made it clear, and when Ally's mom messaged me to discuss the topic, I left her unread, and when my dad called me, I didn't pick up. I won't put up with them yelling and demanding as if that would change my mind. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Not the jerk, but be prepared for them to just show up with a moving truck full of her stuff. Warn your roommate and don't let them in. Op's response. I'd laugh, but I know they may actually decide to drop off Ally on my doorstep. They're the sort of my way or the highway people. Commenter 2. Block them. It's not your responsibility. If it's so important to them, maybe her mother should move closer to the school instead of forcing a 16-year-old into a place where she isn't wanted. I wouldn't go over there. It seems like there's a lot of drama, and it's not a good place to be, very toxic. Why would you want to continuously put yourself through such a toxic, unhealthy dynamic? I think therapy would help you navigate what you're going through, but I wouldn't associate with them. You can love them from a distance. Op's response. They touched on that. Ally's mom considered moving, but it would be a hassle for her to get a job there. Also, I put up with it because, for the most part, we have a good relationship, not counting the two I don't consider my family. We meet 2 times a month, sometimes more, sometimes less, and keep in touch via WhatsApp, but these Sunday outings are common. Op added more of the dinner plan in the comments. Once Ally left, Dad and his ex-side chick told me they'd already told her she'd have to act super nice and respectful for me to agree to take her in, so I guess me going no was a bit of a blow. She was apparently even saving up money so she could help with the bills, although I must say, my dad likes to fluff up his statements so they sound better, so maybe he was lying, I don't know. Still, pretty effed up of them to act like I'll agree to take in this kid. Op on why her mom agreed to stay with her father and put up with all of this. I haven't talked much to my mom since I witnessed her literally beg on her knees for him not to leave her for this 20-something-year-old. That was, as kids say, pretty cringe. But from what I understand, my mom was like, well, it happened, better make the best of it, and really tried her best to bury any resentment she had in order to have a relationship with Ally. Besides, she's an immigrant and literally has no one else here, and moving back to her country wasn't possible, so she stayed despite everything. Both my brother and I have proposed she divorce him and move in with us. We even started the process of renting out a bigger house together so our mom could live with us, but she decided to cancel it at the last minute. It's really sad. What's worse is my dad was ready to leave her for his side chick, but she convinced him to stay. I pity her above all. More on the dinners and strange dynamic. Oh my god, you have no idea. Ally and Ally's mom aren't invited over every single time, but when they are, me and my brother, get either no warning or a 5-minute heads up before we get there. Maybe they're forgetful, but I also wouldn't put it past them to do this intentionally. They know I hate Ally's mom and feel very ambivalent about Ally herself, so I wouldn't attend if I knew beforehand. My parents' house has 2 extra bedrooms, and Ally's mom sometimes sleep there. It's so effing weird. They don't sleep there often, if my parents are to be believed, and it's so shocking that my mom went from a proud, headstrong woman to being borderline cucked in plain sight and under her own roof. It's kind of cathartic to let all of this out. My only friend who I live with sees my point, others excuse it or outright call me the jerk, not to mention how fine my brother seems with everything. One Sunday, I walked in and saw Ally's mom in a towel brushing her teeth, and I just left. Op adds an edit to her post. The thing I feared the most happened. Currently, Ally is in my room after appearing out of nowhere in front of my apartment, with my friend letting her in after she started having a mental breakdown in the hall. I really didn't think this would happen. I mean, I thought about it, but more so in the humorous what-if way. I think my father and Ally's mom divorced themselves from reality if they thought I'd let this crap slide. I'll update later. Op adds a second edit to her post. So sorry for the late update. I wanted to update as soon as possible, but things just sort of kept happening. Anyway, on the day of my super quick update, as I said, Ally materialized in front of my apartment. My best friend called me after letting her in, and I started calling Molly. I'll call Ally's mom that first. Molly didn't pick up. Then I called my dad, left him a dozen missed calls before I finally got in front of my apartment complex, and he finally picked up. He responded to my polite request of getting Ally the F out of my apartment with a counterargument of just letting it be, and then escalated to an "I'll pick her up tomorrow." I explained he'd be picking her up from a police station tomorrow and that he had until midnight to get him or Molly's here if they didn't want me to file a report. I know, I should have done that ASAP, but just like everything, it's more complex than that. Besides, Molly has a charge already, petty theft, nothing serious or crazy, so I guess she'd rather not pile on another. When I got home, Ally was crying on the sofa. My roommate quickly filled me in. Ally came, was shocked to see my roommate instead of me, and asked if she, my roommate, was visiting or leaving. My roommate said she was neither visiting nor leaving. That started a one-sided argument with Ally becoming louder and louder, with my roommate shushing her, before she started to have some sort of breakdown. I wasn't there, and my roommate kept referring to it as a panic attack, and I have no reason to doubt her. Ally then switched up and started screaming at me about how I'm a horrible sister, a liar, a leech, and more names. I can understand horrible sister, but a leech and a liar? I eventually managed to get her to calm down and speak to me without alerting the whole floor about our little family drama, and got the following results. Molly and my dad were, for at least 6 months, or ever since Ally decided to drop out of her previous high school, the stepping stone, using the idea of living with me and going to a nice art high school as leverage. Stuff like, get good grades or you won't live with me, what? She was leaving that school anyway, clean your room or turn in your phone or, and there were some more damaging requests like dropping certain friends, deleting social media, etc., etc. Basically, Ally was hinging on living with me for a long time now. I can't lie, I felt so bad for her. I didn't doubt the validity of her claims because that's the stuff my dad used to do to get me and my brother motivated, promise us something big, hold it over our heads, and then it was a coin toss on whether or not he'd deliver. Molly told Ally that I actually agreed to some trial run for a week, after which she'd come back home to her dad's and spend the rest of the summer preparing for the big move. I have no idea why they promised that when they knew I was against it. Maybe they were banking on me rolling over on my back and taking it, since I did take a step back numerous times to keep the peace, unfortunately, and they thought that since Ally would be there, I wouldn't dare crush her dream. Although it sucked, it was the first time me and Ally had a genuine discussion. It was 40% trash talking on our common parent, 40% trash talking on Molly, and the rest was talking about art. I'm not saying I love her now and will adopt her, but there is a silver lining to every cloud. She then went to sleep on my bed while I waited for her parents to show up. My dad did, at like 11 p.m., and he was so mad to find out Ally was asleep and wondered why I didn't just let her sleep here for the night, but not as angry as me. After hearing out Ally's side of the story, I was really curious about his, and while, at the very least, he took it like a man, he couldn't really defend himself. Granted, I ranted for a solid 5 minutes at the speed of a seasoned rapper, so when he finally got a word in, he probably forgot or didn't understand a good part of it. He just told me he will call me later about this. Well, it's later. I'm really curious about the conclusion to all of this. I'm so emotionally drained that I could barely work and slept in my friend's bed tonight, platonic, we've been doing this since we were kids. Also, thank you for the comments and the advice. I wound up not really able to use it this time, but I made a list of everything I need to do and will focus on that whenever I manage to find a sliver of life within me. Update 3 weeks later. I apologize for my silence. I wanted to update sooner, but things just kept happening, and I didn't have the time or the energy to do so. Anyway, thanks, everyone, for the advice and for assuring me I'm not crazy, though I'm not sure this update is necessarily a happy one. For those who didn't see my small update at the end of my first post and were interested in where the story goes, Ally, my half-sister, showed up at my door comically soon after my post, and I threatened my dad to come pick her up or I would call the police. He did and told me he'd explain everything, though it took him a while to get to that. I assumed he wanted to placate me so I wouldn't bother him anymore, but I visited him last week to talk face to face, and he couldn't really run, backed into a corner. What I learned was kinda crazy. Ally's mom, I called her Molly in my last post, is actually doing really badly financially. You could chalk it up to her brain not being fully cooked before having a child, but I'd like to say it's because Molly is a child herself in many aspects. Something traumatic childhood, something armchair psychologist. I don't know, and I don't care, because she really effed over her daughter. Turns out she took on a lot of loans, yet with her job, it was very unlikely she'd pay them off in the foreseeable future. Therefore, she is currently going through execution? I'm not sure if that's the right word, but basically, she's losing everything to pay off her debts. This also means the state is taking a cut from her salary, leaving her with a livable wage. That's not really enough to live off of, right? Molly decided to sell her apartment and move into something smaller. Originally, she wanted to live in my dad's house, but my mom put her foot down a while ago about Molly and Ally being forbidden from staying at their house for more than a week on special occasions, like when the apartment complex where Molly was staying was going through repairs. Molly wanted to move into a very small, studio apartment, and that would mean she'd be living in this tiny apartment with Ally, which would be pretty cramped. I've seen the apartment, it's basically a glorified chicken coop, which is why they try to put the responsibility on me. They really hoped I would take it upon myself. Not many people are going to be happy about this, but I let Ally stay with me for a little while, but it was impossible to live with her, low-key. I won't go into details, but Ally is clearly a troubled person, and I never noticed since I was never around her for too long. She has night terrors, and my best friend is a very light sleeper with a physically demanding job, so she was absolutely exhausted the whole time Ally was staying. Ally also wasn't really cleaning up after herself and stole my watch, so I told my dad to figure it out because I won't be putting up with this. He practically begged me to take Ally in and said that she'll get better, which, I can believe the burden would lessen over time, but I'm not willing to go through all of that before it does. I finally offered to take her in if she goes to therapy, but Molly's mom doesn't believe in therapy, which is weirdly not shocking at all. I thought my dad would take her in, but my mom was very much against it, and they had a fight over it. My mom had a panic attack and was hospitalized later, so Ally was sent back to her mom. Molly was pissed, but she was pissed at me. In her words, I'm the only one who can reserve space for her, but I'm unwilling because I hate her and Ally. Hate is a strong word, but it's a part of it. My brother also laid into me, even though he has a effing house, but oh no, I'm the one meant to suffer because his girlfriend recently gave birth. Like, I don't care. Same guy who said, blood should be thicker than water, when I told him that my friend lives at my place and I'm not willing to move her out for Ally, but I guess my blood doesn't count. Things are in limbo. My dad is still trying to convince my mom. Between that, he's making snide comments at me. Molly is sending me passive-aggressive messages, and my brother looks at me sideways. I'm considering going full no contact at this point. It genuinely hurts seeing all my family turn on me. At least I have my best friend. I'm so mad I let her be exhausted for such a long time and that I caved to my dad, but I'm so grateful she still sticks with me. I don't know if I'll update again, but I will try to if anything else happens. Again, thank you for the comments assuring me I'm not a heartless wench and for all the advice. /relevant comments. Commenter. I can't say what the right decision is, but at the end of the day, make sure that you are not setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. As bad as it is for Ally, she's not your responsibility, and you shouldn't feel guilty about setting boundaries to protect yourself. Commenter 2. You poor thing. Go no contact and get yourself to therapy if you can. Your side comments about the way your father treated your brother and you make me think you would find it helpful. What are you getting out of being in contact with this soap opera? Ops response. Entertainment? Perhaps, in hindsight, I'll get a good laugh out of it. But right now, aside from being bombarded with messages telling me how horrible I am, I literally get nothing out of it. It's hard to go no contact, and I'm already low contact, but as much as I don't want to, I worry I'll actually go insane like all these people if I don't.